In today's episode, I'm chatting with Edith Nazarian. She's a solo criminal and immigration lawyer with a serious creative streak. We dive into how she blends her legal work with her love for storytelling and how she made the shift from wanting to be a prosecutor to running her own practice. Edith shares what it's like navigating the world of crimmigration, the ups and downs of law school, and how creativity helped her stay grounded through it all. We also talk about writing, moral dilemmas and stories, starting a podcast, and why it's so important to chase your ideas, even if you're scared they might not work out. If you've ever felt torn between structure and freedom or law and creativity, this episode is definitely for you.
Welcome to the How to Write a Book podcast. I'm Maciel, writer, certified book coach, and your go-to guide for beating writer's block and getting your book done. Master the art of pitching, publishing, and thriving. Your author journey starts here. For more resources, tips, and support, visit howtowriteabookpodcast.com. So grab a notebook, open that document, and let's get writing. And welcome back to the How to Write a Book podcast. Hello, Edith. How are you today?
Doing well, Marcel. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I am super excited to have you. Oh my goodness. So just before we dive into you, quick context for everyone. I heard Edith on another podcast, Ladies Who Law, and what Edith does, not just as a career, but the creativity she's pursuing. And I was like, I need to talk to this person. This person's amazing. So Edith Nazarian, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited, Marcel, because when we connected before, I really felt like we had such a good connection, and I'm just excited to talk with you today.
Me too. When I heard you on the other show, Ladies Who Law, I felt that energy. And like as a person who has a lot of podcast interviews, you kind of feel the energy, such a positive, radiant, just amazing energy. And I was like,
thank you.
Yeah, instant friends. I love it.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. Edith, why don't you introduce yourself and all of your amazingness to our listeners?
Thank you so much, Marcel. So I am a solo practitioner. I do criminal and immigration law. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. But before I became an attorney, I actually majored in English with an emphasis in creative writing. I also minored in criminology, law, and society, which explains, how I got into the law. But yeah, it was creativity has always been a very central part of what I do and who I am. And it's kind of continued with me throughout my legal profession in different ways. So I'm excited to be here to talk to you about it.
Oh, that's amazing. One of the things that stuck out to me when I first heard you on the other show was the term that you used, crimmigration.
Yes.
I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We think we can all guess what it means, but yeah, like how those two worlds intersect for you?
Oh, so crimmigration. I really love this area of law because, and they just really honestly, like the word itself, they flow so well together. It really goes hand in hand. So I started really with an interest in criminal law. And I wanted to be a prosecutor. I wanted to be a DA. That was me in law school. And then when I graduated, the DA's office was not hiring. So I had to turn to plan B, which was private practice. And before I became an attorney, though, I was in the law review. So writing, right? Legal writing. But I wrote an article on criminal immigrants at the border. And that's how I got interested in immigration and how I really saw how the two worlds collided. And that kind of became what I practice. My main areas of practice is criminal and immigration, or like how I like to say, crimmigration.
Love that. I love that because I actually Google searched it and Google's like, yes, that's the word.
Yes.
Because I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
So tell us a little bit about, I would like everyone to understand where you're coming from first. So now they know you're a immigration lawyer, but can you tell us about your journey? You got your degree in creative writing, and then you went into law school, and then you kind of found yourself in private practice. But what about to where you are now? Now you are a solo practitioner. What happened between then?
Yeah. So, it's funny that you asked me that, because this was a question that I was thinking about pretty recently. I wrote an article for Voyage LA. They contacted me about writing an article for them. So I did. And one of the questions was, how did you get where you are? And I had to think about it because, when I went to college, I thought, I think I want to be an attorney, but I really like English and writing. So maybe I want to go into academia. But then I felt like, I really want to make a direct impact on people's lives. And I felt like I would be able to do that with a legal career. So that's why I went into law school. Then when I was in law school, there were different, interests. Like I mentioned before, I really wanted to be a DA, and that's government practice. I thought that was what I wanted to do, just work for the government, have a really balanced life. And then, things changed and I went into private practice, and I thought, okay, well, either I can go solo just off the bat. And actually my first 2 cases, I was solo, or I could work with another attorney, another law firm, and get more practice and experience that way. So I ended up doing the latter. And for a while I thought, okay, this is going well. But there came a point in my life where I felt like I really had plateaued in my career. And things were just really the same. And I didn't feel like I was growing. I felt like I had kind of hit a ceiling. Mm-hmm. So I had this desire, I had this pull to start my own law firm and become a business owner, which I had never, ever thought of becoming. When I was in college, I did not think, okay, I'm going to go start my own business. And, no, that was never the idea. But then it just happened, and I just felt really called to do it. It was a very natural process, and really just, I think, listening to your gut and listening to what feels right for you. And that for me at the time felt right. And now this is where I am.
I love that.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, because you have not 1, but 2 offices.
Yeah.
Right? Oh,
yeah. I'm actually at my Glendale office right now, and I will be going to my Woodland Hills office later today. I try to keep them, just 1 office per day, but sometimes there's overlap. But yeah, I like the freedom. There's really great flexibility in being your own boss and doing things your way. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like maybe as a fellow creative, right, there's something about that also kind of calls to us. It's a little bit of like the lifestyle where we want to be without bounds, whether that's right.
Like, oh my God. Yes. 100%. You nailed it. I love the freedom, flexibility of creating my own schedule, thinking, okay, today I can take a break. I can go, I'm in Santa Monica, and I can go to the beach if I want to. And that's so amazing. And yeah, just living your life on your terms and allowing yourself to feel, well, maybe I want to do this today. Or maybe I want to work at a cafe today. You're able to do what you want and allow your soul to do what it needs.
Oh, I love that. To have your soul do what it needs. Yes. Because I think we deny ourselves that a lot of times,
Yeah.
Just with some of the work culture, 9 to 5, 40 hours a week.
Oh my God.
Clock in, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, is there time for the soul? Which I think is something that we're going to talk about. Time for the soul, creative work. But before we get into that, let us inside maybe like your typical schedule, maybe even day to day, that might be a little bit different for you, but about week to week, what does your now look like?
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that, because in freedom, I think we also need structure, right?
Yes.
That allows us to be free in a kind of ironic way. So I will time block. Usually I will time block. And what's great about it is you put on your schedule the things that you need to do. So for example, I'll put meetings on my calendar, or I'll put things for, office management, because as a solo, as there are so many wonderful things about it, being your own boss, also everything is on you. So let me, I definitely want to mention there is another side. So everything is on you. So it's important to be very organized and, to me, structured. So I will map out my day. I will map out my meetings. Usually that will entail office meetings and then office management or responding to emails and then also doing work. So I will schedule all that. And I kind of created a system for both offices where people can schedule meetings, which has helped me so much, because then I have an idea of, okay, how do my days look? It's kind of really consistent. And that allows me to know, okay, when do I have my little pockets of freedom to do what I need to do? So yeah, that's kind of my day to day.
I love that. You've carved out something really special for yourself. Your enthusiasm, your practice, but then also on your own terms. So I love that. Everyone, goals. Congratulations, by the way, because I'm sure based on our conversations just outside of the camera, it took a lot of years, took a lot of hard work. So, oh my gosh, just for everyone now, like being able to watch, I'm putting my hands up, like, yes. So let's go backwards. One of the things I do want to talk about is we're talking about creativity, we're talking about law, how those intersect. But let's go all the way back. You mentioned that you were a creative writing degree person, right? Wow, words.
Yeah.
So where did that stem from, and what were you doing during that time?
Yeah, so I always loved to write. Since I would say high school, I would, true confessions, I would write fan fiction in high school.
Yes.
And that's what really drew me into writing and just imagination. And I'll tell you a funny story, actually, because I had to learn the hard way, AKA through English, essay grading, that there's a place for creativity, flowery language, and then there's a place for, clear, distinct writing. And so that's kind of where I learned in high school, when I would put in all this flowery language and think, wow, this is so amazing. And my English teacher would come back and say, no. No, this doesn't make sense. You need to, and that's really where I learned how to write. You can't assume that the reader understands what you're thinking. And that was, I would say, when I was a baby writer. And then I got into college and I love the creative writing. So I decided to make that my emphasis. And I would do creative writing workshops, and that was, I know we talked about it a little too, and how you felt like you would write a story and then you would go to these workshops and then you couldn't say a single word and you'd have to listen to everyone critiquing it or saying what they think. And you just felt like, wow, I just gave birth. This was my child. And now everyone's judging it. And you just have to sit down and that was definitely a process, but I loved it. I loved, I felt like the deadlines where they would say, okay, now it's your turn to write a story, that really caused the creative juices to flow. I feel like writing for me came about either because I had to, like I said, for an assignment, or through catharsis. Meaning I just felt like I had to express myself. These feelings come up, and it happened in law school too, where legal writing is very, very different from creative writing. Legal writing is meant to be clear and succinct. Not to say that you can't be creative with legal writing. Not to say that at all. You have to argue. You have to be persuasive. And there's a great deal of creativity when you're trying to think, okay, how am I going to phrase this header to catch, the reader's attention, whether it's a judge or whoever, right? And how can I pull them towards my side of the story? Because usually there are two sides. So there's definitely creativity in that, but it's a different type of creativity from, I would say, creative writing. And when I was in law school, I felt like it was very, very much, okay, the law, analyze, be succinct. And there came a point where I just felt like, I have to release this creativity that I feel so deprived of. And it came through songwriting, actually.
Oh, wow.
I was really inspired by this one painting in our law hall, one of our lecture halls. And I can tell you, it was this amazing, huge black and white sketch of this man. And you could only see his back, and you could tell he's wearing a tuxedo, a coat, and has his arms on this, railing. And you can just feel that he's tortured because of the way his back was bent and how he was just, the whole feeling of that painting felt like this man is tortured. And then I looked at the title, and it was called Butler in Love. And that to me just expressed so much about that painting. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. I was inspired. And I just remember, when I wasn't reading, case law, when I wasn't writing, I was literally, in the shower coming up with this song about the butler who's in love. And I wrote this song and I performed it. We had a law school talent show and I performed it. Yeah. And it was my way of really expressing myself creatively. And yeah, it was my way to write in that context. And it kind of merged all the things that I love, which is storytelling and music and singing and all these things in a place where I felt like, it wasn't necessarily the place to do those things.
Yeah. Very strict, rigid environment versus, the creative, free-flowing, flowers everywhere environment.
Yeah.
Merging those two together. Now, just a sidetrack. So did you teach yourself like music, like basically on the spot?
Yeah, also in high school. So it's a really funny story because I went to, this is piano. I was taught violin. So I knew how to read and sight read violin notes, but I kind of taught myself piano. I took a little bit of music theory in high school as well. So I figured out, okay, this is how you do piano, but I'm very stubborn. So I took one piano class when I was a child, and it was so rigid again that I never went back. I said, you know what, this is too boring. I'm not going to learn the right way. I'm not going to learn the proper way. Instead, what I'm going to do is in high school, figure out which songs I like and then painstakingly try to learn the sheet music. It will take you a year, right? But that's fine. So that's what I did. I literally taught myself the music I wanted to learn, and it took me a very long time to do it. But I did. And then from there, I kind of would just play around on the keyboard. And when I came up with the song, I just came up with little chords, very, very simple. It's very, very simple, but it worked. So that's what I did.
That's amazing. I mean, like you had a little bit of background, but you like went forward and got it all together. That is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because I feel like, someone like me, like I'm like, no, I'm just a writer. Like for someone to be like, hey, can you write a song? I'm like, whoa, way out of my league. So that is awesome. How many people were there at your recital contest?
At the talent show, oh gosh, it was at a bar. I think it was Busby's East in Los Angeles. I don't remember, but it was just a whole I don't know, just law school people. It was I don't know, 50 around. I'm not sure, but there was a good amount of people. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you feel after that? Because, sometimes when we're writing, we feel that catharsis. So you accomplished this huge product. What were your feelings afterward?
I felt very good that I had written something that I loved, but that also other people seem to enjoy as well. So it was very motivating, I would say, to think, okay, well, I'm not at all a professional in this area. I'm not, but to know that you can write something that you enjoy and that other people enjoy. And I will give you a little funny side. I like a lot of jazz, blues, things like that. It may not be so mainstream right now. And in fact, my own parents never liked my style of music or singing. So I will say, people may not agree with you, and those people may be very close to you sometimes, but I think what's important is to do what you feel called to do. So if it feels right to you, your people will find you. I really do think that your audience is going to find you. You are going to connect with someone. And that's what I always loved about the writing process is you will write a story, and for you, it may mean something. But then when you release it to the world, whoever reads it will bring their life and their experiences and their story to your own story. And they will get something out of it that is so unique to them. And I find that so beautiful that we can all look at the same thing, but get such different things out of it, whatever we need.
Yes, I totally agree. And everyone should just take that in for a second. You know, when you put it out there, it's going to mean something different for someone else. And that means to let it go because we can't hold on to them so tightly that we never let them out.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
you worded that beautifully. And you know what? Now that you say that you love jazz, so your microphone makes a lot more sense now. You know?
Yeah.
Your microphone is so cool. Like for everyone who cannot see this, it's like a very like jazz blues microphone, you know, that silver one that Sinatra would grab and like, you know, croon into. So
it's a meteor mic for anyone who's interested.
Wait, say that again.
Meteor mic. I think it's a Samsung meteor mic.
Nice.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone take your notes down. It's gorgeous, gorgeous mic. So that is awesome. So let's go. You're already in law school. You have a chance to open up your creativity. And let's backtrack a little bit. You're a creative writer, and then you go into law school where, as you said, everything suddenly becomes succinct, very like it's this or that, strict. Did you continue your writing right off the bat, your creative writing right off the bat? Or was there a kind of like, maybe like a mismatch at first where you're so into this world and maybe you started craving the other world? Can you tell us about that?
Definitely the latter. Definitely the latter. I felt like when I was in law school, I had to go by the law school idea of writing. And because I was doing it so much, that kind of was what I was doing. I didn't, and like I was saying too, is I feel like the creativity kind of was poking at me, just saying, hey, remember me. I have a voice too. And that's where the song came from. And I would do that in pockets. So I had my legal writing world, and then I had on the side the creativity that needed to breathe.
Literally.
Come out. And I felt like I've kind of always been like that. I've needed both worlds. I've needed the analysis. I needed the, I would say more formal, strict world in a way, because it's something that I'm good at. And I do feel like it's a great vehicle to help people. Using that. But then at the same time, I need that creativity. I need an outlet for myself to express myself in different ways. So I did that through, like I mentioned, the creative writing process, but then also, songwriting, dancing, choreographing dances and things like that. That was also something that I loved, and storytelling through dance. And I love doing that. And I would do that after law school. And I still do that, actually.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So do you choreograph like a group, or like what do you do?
So it's mainly just for me. I'll get ideas and I will perform them. So for example, I was dancing tango a lot. And there was a fellow classmate. He's an actor, and he approached me and he said, well, would you be interested in doing a dance, tango dance, because he wanted it for his acting reel. And I said, yeah, sure. Sure. So we came up with this dance, and I love it because neither of us are dancing professionals by any stretch of imagination. The imagination. I would not call myself a professional dancer or choreographer or anything like that. But we came together. I'm very proud of us because we choreographed a whole dance, to a whole song, and I love with my creative writing. When I would write short stories, when I would end a story, I kind of liked putting the reader in a kind of uncomfortable position, because I thought that would often be thought-provoking, or I wanted to leave the reader thinking, is this right? Was this the right move? So one of my first creative writing stories, it was about assisted suicide. And it was set, back in, France, a long time ago. There was a viscount. The character he's so charming and everything. And he goes to an apothecary. And at the apothecary, he purchases something. You don't know. The reader doesn't know. But the person at the apothecary, the seller, knows. And she just kind of afterwards kind of has a bad feeling. And then later on, you see the French viscount with his mother in her room, and you find out she's ill, and he's giving her tea, and it's meant to be fennel. It's meant to look like fennel tea, but really it's hemlock, and he's giving her hemlock. And there's a point in the story where she looks at her son and she says, "Oh, why are you crying?" Right? And it kind of leaves you at this feeling of, oh God, well, does she know what's going on? Because I kind of, suggest maybe she knows what's going on. And then, does she drink it? And then is he doing the right? So all those kind of things that kind of leave it for the reader to think, okay, is this the right process? Is it not? Just leaving it with all these different emotions. Another story that I wrote had to do with a young kid in this small, East Coast town. It's a seafaring town, and he lives with his single mom and his younger brother. And there's this whole question of, is he going to leave the small town and go to college? And the mom keeps on asking him, "Oh, did you get the letter? Do you know if you're in?" And he keeps saying, "No, not yet. And then later on, you find out his father left them, and he's grappling with this feeling of, I don't want to desert my family. And at the end, he comes back home. There's a power outage. He has a candle, and you see him go into his room, and he pulls out the acceptance letter. And the reader knows that he was accepted, and he burns it.
Oh,
Burns it, and then he says, it just ends with, nothing is more selfish than fire, right? And throughout the story, I had a lot of connection with the dad and fire and passion and, doing what you love. And so then the reader kind of thinks like, oh, is that the right move? So I kind of like to put the reader in, for better for worse, in a kind of uncomfortable position of thinking, I would say. So, of course, also in my choreography, I kind of pull that in as well. And there was a point in time where, we were choreographing, and I turned to my partner and I said, I think you should strangle, and, I think I should die. I think you should kill me in the process. And then he says, no, I can't do that. And then later on, he kind of gets on board and says, okay, so how are we going to do it? So I tend to try to bring in these types of motifs and themes in my creative work, because I feel like it's important for the reader to think about actions and how they have a ripple effect, not only on yourself, but also the people around you. And you may be well-meaning, you may be thinking, okay, this might be the right move, but is it really the right move? And so I enjoy exploring those sort of things.
Oh, I love that. And now, this is totally just a me question. I just want to know, when you're writing these like stories that grapple with, the soul and choices. Do you feel like you're facing a choice yourself, and so you're trying to kind of like, figure it out in your writing? Because I find that I do that. What about you?
Yeah, I think that they happen out of curiosity. I do think that a lot of times we bring things into writing that we ourselves are working through. I definitely do that now. When I write now, especially because the trajectory of my career has changed in different ways. And now as a business owner, I'm focused on that. But there have definitely been moments where I just feel like, and I shared that with you, Marcia, when I sent you the little poem that I wrote. And that was really about me and what I thought about me as a writer, now having gone into the legal profession and writing when I feel necessary. And that was a moment of me feeling like I needed to work through, what is a writer? And the question that I was asking in that little poem is, people say that people are born writers, right? And I was born a writer. And this is how I would write. And it was so beautiful. But then I went into law school, and they said, no more flowery language, right? Not unless you're Justice Scalia writing a dissent, right? Which I love, by the way, as an aside. I love Justice Scalia's dissents. Not so much all his opinions, but his dissents were great, flowery, wonderful language. And then at the end, I just ask myself, well, if you're born a writer, shouldn't you also die as one? And that's kind of a question for me, So yeah, definitely, I would say there are times when that comes up.
I love that. And hopefully we can have a chance to point to your poem wherever it lives or include it in our notes, because it was beautiful. And I won't give it away, but the way that you do describe, death towards the end, and the way that death is kind of touching parts of the poem, and you can feel it, you can see it. And I was like, oh, yeah, felt that. Yep. That's the question that we needed to hear today. It was awesome. It was very powerful. Now, I do have a question about your tango moment that you had there.
Yeah.
I was curious. You mentioned that your partner in dancing was an actor. Now that kind of got me thinking, did you meet a lot of creative people in law school?
Oh, I wouldn't say in law school, interestingly, but definitely after, in the tango community, 100%. I mean, I feel like, and that's probably why I was drawn to dancing.
I love it.
Because there's so much creativity and expression and tango especially, there's a lot of improvisation and doing what feels right in the moment. I love that. So yeah, not so much. Although we did have the talent show. So it was so cool to see people that you usually see in lecture halls and arguing and, saying, okay, this is what this case was about, etc. And then seeing them in a different light. I remember my civil procedure professor sang a song and he was on, the guitar, right? So I love seeing other sides of people, because I do think we are also multifaceted. And I think that's important to keep in mind. It's not just I'm a writer or I'm a lawyer. I'm all of those things, but I'm me, right? And this is a way that I express myself to the world. And just using different vehicles. So I wouldn't say, I wouldn't try to label anyone or put anyone in a box. So I wouldn't say, even though people were very surprised, other people in the legal profession, when I would tell them, I would write music and things like that, they would look at me and say, are you sure you should be a lawyer? So are you sure this is the right thing you should be doing? And the truth is yes, because this is what I've decided really fulfills me. But there are different things that can fulfill us as well. And using those vehicles to accomplish that, I think is so important. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We're multifaceted. We're not just, I'm a writer, I'm a lawyer. You are you. I am me. Yeah. Beautiful, Edith. That was awesome. Now, surprisingly, we haven't even gotten to the crux of the questions I wanted to ask you. So, which kind of happens in these conversations. So, first, my main questions are, when you went into law school, how did your creative side help to support or influence the way that you approached law school or law writing?
I definitely think it kept me sane.
That's good.
Definitely kept me sane, because when you are under so much pressure to deliver because things were on curves, right? One test would basically dictate your entire grade for a class, and things were on a curve and all these things. So there was a lot of pressure to do well. I also dealt with that in a way of just kind of letting it go. You mentioned that earlier too, Marcia, is just letting go of things and results, right? There was definitely a moment where I was worrying about one test in particular, and I said, you know what, right now, law school is a bubble. I'm in a bubble, and outside of this bubble, nobody really cares. Nobody really cares what grade I get on this exam. It's fine. And that helped me a lot, But I would say beyond that, just having that creative outlet definitely helped balance me and definitely relieve stress as I was going through law school. Definitely.
I love that. And you also mentioned this earlier. You said it allowed your soul to breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, just a hypothetical, where do you think, how would your journey have been if you hadn't allowed yourself to breathe? What do you think that kind of would have been a negative impact to you and to maybe even your career?
Oh, 100%. Definitely, I think if you don't listen to your body and what it's asking for, you are just leading yourself to burnout. I mean, I can't say exactly what would have happened to me, but I don't think it would have been good. I don't think I want to know what would have happened, but I do know that, that was another thing. There were breaks when I would take in law school where we had a little piano in one of the lounges, and I would just go and I would play the piano, and I needed those moments.
Yes.
Because we can't do the same thing all the time, and we can't push ourselves without rest all the time, because doing that is just asking for, I would say, failure. So I would definitely take breaks. I would go to that little lounge. I would play the piano. I would do, in the law library, I think they had a little book nook that I like to go to.
I love that.
Fiction. It was, just AKA not legal books. They had a little book nook. That's what I called it. That's not the official name, but I would go there and I would just sit down and I would look at the books and I would, pull something out, just to allow yourself to be free and relax.
I love that. Yes. Because, going back to what I was saying earlier, kind of live in this, I think, this society, the structure where it's like, work, no play. You get play when you quote unquote deserve play, but you've shown that, having your soul breathe once in a while, it's not only good for you, but it's just like kind of soul saving. You need it.
100%. Completely agree with you. Yes.
Now, my next question is kind of on the flip side to that. So how do you feel like we talked about creativity impacting the law journey. Now, what about the law journey impacting your creativity? And have you encountered places where you're like, oh, it's boosted my creativity, or it's given a different structure, anything like that you found either at school or throughout your career?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I touched on earlier, which is thinking in different creative ways, coming up with different creative legal arguments to help your client. I definitely would have to do this for my immigration cases a lot. Sometimes it's reading, how do you read a statute? Statutory interpretation, because this statute is missing this word, and this word is really, really significant, right? It's mentioned in all these other provisions and statutes, but it's not here. So that means something. And coming up with these types of arguments, and in your writing to deciding, okay, what word should I use here? What is the best diction to use, and being really creative. And it's so great when you do this and it works. You just say, you know what, that feels so good, because I am combining the creativity with the real world and getting really amazing results for people that change their lives sometimes. And it's so meaningful for me. And I love having that kind of background in thinking differently or expressing differently, and how can I best express. And I think sometimes too, when it comes to arguing in court, of just bringing that human aspect to the argument. I feel like with writing, a lot of times the reasons why it connects with people is because it says something human. It says something that really resonates with people and emotions. And the more that I have lived and practiced and been a business owner, it's just so that is very true, that we're all living in a very human world. And it's based on connections and connecting with the other person across the room. And I feel like that's what really differentiates us from, I know AI is really huge right now, and, I definitely use it, right? But at the same time, I use it as a tool. It's something to assist, because you may put something in ChatGPT may spit something out and you say, okay, this is great, but it's not my voice. It's not what I would
100%.
say. So it's a tool, but it can't replace human interaction and human connection.
Mm-hmm. And you're so right. Like, you're having that human interaction, not just through your law practice, but when you create, that's connecting with people. And that's so important, because really, I mean, we're here on this earth, and sometimes, that whole question of existence, why are we here? And although I think we all have different answers, but human connection is often the theme of where we come to, especially during like Christmas time, right? Or holidays. It's like being with your loved ones, helping others, engaging with others. I think you really hit the nail on the head. Now I had a different question, kind of going back to workshops. So, you know how we talked about workshops, and we face this panel of people basically who kind of tell you how ugly your baby is. Has that helped you when you face judges, or other attorneys, or vice versa? You're like, hey, now I'm tough because I've had my writing critique.
Oh my gosh, that's a great point, Marcia. I love that. Yes. Yes, 100%. Because you put your best effort in these writings, you put your whole heart and soul in creating something. And when someone says, I didn't understand that, or no, I think that this could have been said differently or something, and you just think, oh my goodness, excuse me. Do you understand how long it took me to think about this sentence and this phrasing? So definitely you learn to not take things so personally. And I think really, like I was saying, everyone brings their own worldview to your writing. It's not your worldview. So you can't really fault people. I mean, maybe there's something you could have done a little differently to better, communicate your point, etc. But still, you take it as constructive criticism. You take it as, all right, as long as it is constructive criticism and people are not just, trying to be mean, right? There's a difference. But and I think that applies in the law too, because when opposing counsel may say something, or the judge may make a different decision, and you think, wow, that really is not how I see it. But you take it as, well, this is what they think, and how can I come? I'm very persistent. I tend to not take no for an answer when it comes to practicing. So I keep trying. I keep coming again and again and again until, question is, what do you need, judge? What do you need, or whoever's reviewing the case? What is it that I need to prove to you? And then when you get it, when you finally have it, you say, okay, here you go, right? Getting that, getting to the issue, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That creativity, the innovation.
Yes. And the
Yeah.
persistence.
Yeah, the persistence.
Never giving up.
Not crying when you're like, my baby's not ugly, your baby's ugly. Totally feel that. No, that's amazing. So, actually, I think we could explore this all day, but I do want to hit on what's next for you, Edith. I know that you're working on something amazing that I'd love for you to share, but as well as anything else down your pipeline.
No, thank you so much, Marcia. I really appreciate it because this has been a work of love, of labor and love for me. I started out with the idea at the beginning of the year, and it's actually coming to fruition. So that's so exciting. And that's, I'm launching my own podcast. and it's called The Client Connection. It's about bringing attorneys and clients together to bridge that gap between them to help increase case success. And that's really what I feel is really calling to me right now, is to share what I've learned and inviting people, really esteemed guests and friends of mine, colleagues who can share on different topics that both attorneys and clients can use in their journeys, in their legal journeys, to help them with whatever they're doing. So very excited. I launched the first 2 episodes. They're on Spotify, and I just uploaded them onto YouTube. So it's very exciting.
Oh, I love that. Congratulations, everybody. That's The Client Connection, right? Find that on YouTube. Oh my gosh, I love it. And Spotify.
Yes.
Oh, and then are there any other creative works that you see down your pipeline so far?
I think it goes back to choreographing, just dancing. I still dance. It's currently what my outlet is, but then also here and there, I will do music, and then write. I really do feel in certain ways that songwriting is our, a mainstream source of poetry.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I just love coming up with words and little phrases that really help. Most of the time it's helping me because it's very catharsis, but that when other people enjoy it too, it's always great. So yeah, just doing those things.
I love that. Thank you so much, Edith. Now, any other last bits of wisdom or anything that you just want the writers to leave with?
Yeah, I think a little bit about what we talked about was just trusting yourself, following your intuition, and really just do it, right? If you have an idea, just pursue it. Because for me, when I thought about going out on my own, one of the reasons why I did is I thought to myself, well, years from now, will I look back and think, well, why didn't I do it? I didn't want to have any regrets. And I feel like if you have this idea of, okay, you know what, I want to write this book, or I have this calling, I feel like, I want to do this creative pursuit, do it. The podcast started off with just an idea. And how I did it was an idea. And at the beginning of the year, I didn't set the goal of, I'm going to have a podcast out. No, I broke it down and I said, I'm going to look into starting a podcast. That was my only goal for the whole year. Only goal. And that made it manageable. So I said, okay, let me look into it. And then it became, okay, now what would the idea, topic be? Okay, the title. Okay, the guests. And then it just kind of naturally flowed into, now I have a podcast. So I really feel like if you have an idea, you owe it to yourself to pursue it, to just even look into it and do it in a manageable way so that it doesn't frighten you, doesn't scare you, but it is productive for you and allows you to accomplish the goals that really, really satisfy your soul.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much, Edith. Now, where can everyone find you? And of course, please share your podcast again.
Yeah, so you can find my website. It's enlawoffices.com. So E as in Edith and N as in Nazarian, lawoffices.com. That's the same handle for my Instagram, En Law Offices. And the Client Connection will be posted on Spotify and YouTube, but you can also follow my Instagram to get updates. And you can email me at edith@enlawoffices.com. And if you have an idea for the podcast, contact me at podcast@enlawoffices.com.
Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Edith Nazarian from the How to Write a Book podcast. It has been a true pleasure to have you here.
Likewise, Marcia, I had such a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And hey, before you go, don't forget to check out the brand new website at howtowriteabookpodcast.com. You can send me a message right there and let's start chatting about your book. Whether you're dreaming up your first chapter or polishing a final draft, I'd love to hear where you're at. No pressure. And then we can book a free 15-minute call to help you get clear on your next steps. And as always, keep writing, keep dreaming, and don't let doubt hold that pen. You've got this, and I'm here to help you make it happen. Until next time, happy writing.
Thanks for tuning in to the How to Write a Book podcast. I'm Maciel, here to help you write, pitch, and publish your book. Get expert resources at howtowriteabookpodcast.com. Follow me on Instagram at Maciel Writes. And if you enjoyed the show, leave a review to help more writers find us. Until next time, happy writing.